Hey lads, welcome back to another NRL Fantasy Fanatics YouTube video. Tonight we got the NRL team list for round three. Some interesting things to pick apart here. As always, joined by Will. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Now that TLT is finally out. Let's get right into it. To start us off, we got the probably game of a round. Storm those Panthers 8 a.m. at Amy Park. Um, I think just one change for the Storm with Grant Anderson replacing Will Warbrick. Other than that, after their bye, they should be. I'm tipping them to win this game against Penrith after their shocking performance last week. We got Pappenhausen at the one spot, good option, solid option, and Anderson, and also another good option, Jack Howarth at the centres with the edge duel. He could be an interesting one if you want to downgrade a Hosking to a Howarth if you think Nicholson's maybe a bit of a trap. Do you have any interest in Howarth as a cash down option?
Nah, I don't have much. I would personally go with Nicholson over a Howarth. I just I don't really see he's on the best team, but I don't really see him scoring amazing at centre. Like we've never really seen centre score amazingly, and with Nicholson playing on the edge, he's going to get more tackles than that. So I think more base stats as he relies a fair bit heavily on those attacking stats for me, Howarth.
Yeah, I do agree. Um, Cam Munster, Jerome Hughes, the pairing for the Storm. Look, if you got Munster, you he'll be doing well for you, but wouldn't pick any of those up this week. Stefano, I've seen a fair few people trade him out. I think he could. I think he's a hold. There's probably most likely other fires you'd need to put out in your team, and I don't think Stefano's one you need to be drastically getting rid of. So I'd hold Stefano. Same thing with Grant. We had him as a hold last week. He had a pretty poor first game with a try, scoring about 40-ish, but I think he will bounce back against Penrith. Should be a pretty even contest, and he'll get it. He'll rack up a lot of tackles, hopefully. So if you held him, good job. Looking through there, King, Ball, Katoa, and Liero. Not a hell of a lot of interest there in any of them. The interchange, Wishart, McDonald, Kamikamitha, and Valepu. Yeah, again, no interest there. Looking into the Panthers side of things, Dylan Edwards has been sustained an injury and Dane Laurie has taken his spot. Was it a groin injury for Edwards? Is that what I was
Yeah,
hearing?
I think it's 2 to 3 weeks. Could even be four for Edwards.
Yeah. Dane Laurie could be an interesting one for like a 2 to 4 week punt. Do you have any interest in Laurie as a little maybe cash generation?
Yeah, I have a little bit like if he can hold that spot for 3 weeks on, arguably still in my eyes the favourite to win the comp, and I do think that the Penrith will bounce back and upset the Storm here. So I do think that Dane will do really well. We have seen what he can score when he gets the chance, and on a very good Penrith side playing next to probably the greatest player we've ever seen in the league. I do think that Dane could be one that generates cash very quickly. The only thing could be if Dane's break even is a little bit higher because he has had a couple games come off the bench here. I would check quickly.
Yeah.
He has a break even of 34, so probably not one to go off unless Dylan Edwards gets injured again.
Yeah. Look, there's probably not enough security for Dane Laurie with Edwards only out for around 4 weeks. So I'd probably stay away. Casey McLean, Tungo, and Alamotti, all the same from last week. Hold if you have any of them. Nathan Cleary and Jack Cole, the halves pairing. Jack Cole has had a terrible run in the first 2 weeks, but I'm not going to get rid of him just because in case he can do well. And look, if he has one or two more bad weeks, he might be out of my team. But for now, I'm holding him. Same with Cleary. I've seen people trade Cleary to get Haas, and that's just ridiculous to me. The this is a He's the best scorer in the last 5 years for fantasy. Averages 65 every year, even more. Ceiling of 100, 110. You can't get rid of Cleary. So anyone who's getting rid of Cleary for Haas, don't do it. Don't rip up your team to get Haas. Um, Looking through this, I think Penrith are virtually unchanged as well, with a few different bench pairings with Isaiah Papali'i back from injury and Schneider as well. So Isaiah Yeo, another one we have seen a lot of people get rid of for Haas. I strongly advise against that. Would you agree? I think Isaiah, you cannot get rid of him after one bad week.
Yeah, I think he had one terrible game and just didn't look good at all. But I did look at Isaiah Yo, and he did get saved by that try also in his last game where he probably would have got a 50. But I think Isaiah has been so good for so many years, and I do think the 3 date rule comes into consideration when trying to trade your guns. And I think I'll give Isaiah at least 2 more weeks, and if he goes 50 and a 50, then I would consider trading him. But I'd say he's almost one that should be in your teams as an untouchable option.
I do agree. He's always been a season-long keeper, and I don't think that's going to change. One bad week does not mean you should rage trade, and like we said before, don't rip up your teams to get Haas. Looking at the bench, we got Schneider, Publi, Henry, and Garner. Similar to last week with Eisenhuth and who else? Someone else making way. Oh, Edwards. But Schneider and Papali'i. Hopefully Papali'i can earn a starting spot soon-ish, but there's just so much edge competition at Penrith. I just don't see it happening soon. So we'll move on to the next game. Warriors versus Roosters at 6 p.m. at Go Media. Warriors, I'm tipping to win this game at their home grounds. Um, Not too much change here for the Warriors. We got Nickel Clockstad, Talpiki, Leitua, and Pompey. I'd stay away from all of them. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck could be an interesting option, but a bit up and down in my eyes. And the halves pairing of Harris Tavita and Metcalf. Harris Tavita, especially one who I've got a lot of interest in. He's scored 50-ish the last 2 weeks and seems to be splitting the kicking with Metcalf. And he's got a great ball playing and running game. Do you have any interest in Harris Tavita at all?
Yeah, I think Harris will. He is pretty pricey now compared to where he was at the start of the season, but he's one that is kicking well to be fair. And I do think that the Warriors looked much better on the weekend, which will help Harris Tavita. But I just think that there's too many halves around his price, like a Humphreys, and people already have Coles and Sand and Smiths that you can't really go with. But could be an interesting option if you wanted to upgrade Tom Duffy to channel Harris
Yeah,
Tavita, who has a low break
I do
even
agree.
point.
If you have the cash to do it, Harris Tavita could be an interesting option. Metcalf, one who I got rid of last week for Humphreys, and I'm sure a lot of people did, gets a 7 spot again. If you held him, you're laughing. Wouldn't look to bring him in, but wouldn't look to sell him either. Just a strong hold. Forwards, we got Fisher, Harris, Egan, and Barnett. Same as last week. Um, Fisher Harris seems to be getting the minutes. He got 60 last week for a score of 57-ish, which is really good for him. I wouldn't be looking to pick him up again. Same with Egan. But if you have them, strongholds, obviously. Mitch Barnett is one who I own, and I'm looking to sell this week, actually. I've gone Hosking to Nicholson and Barnett to Haas with 80k left. So I think Barnett is a hold slash sell. He didn't get the minutes last week. It's just the points aren't there for him. What would you be doing with Barnett if you owned him?
Yeah, well, Mitch Barnett would be one that I'd probably trade out to get to a house, but other than that, I wouldn't really trade him. I think he has gone 49 and 41 there, which I do think again the free don't rule for those keepers as he could come in and play big minutes on the weekend. So I would give Barnett probably 1 more week unless trading to Payne Haas.
Yeah, I do agree. Um, Like we said before, don't rip up your teams to get halves. If you can't afford it, don't do it. The only reason I can do this is because I left 150k in the bank last week, and I can go from Barnett straight to half. So, but if you can't go to halves, hold Barnett. Aaron Clark, an interesting one, got like 45-ish minutes last week for a score of low 40s. PPM's there, just the minutes aren't, so I'd stay away. Same with everyone on that Warriors bench. If Jackson Ford can get another starting prop role, I'd look into him, but with Barnett being moved back, I wouldn't. Rooster side of things, Tedesco, Tupou, Mark Nawaqanitawase, Toya, and Dom Young, 1 to 5. Toya and Mark, if you own them, holds along with Tedesco. Daniel Tupou, after a strong week last week, would not be going near him. Too up and down. Dominic Young, same thing. Sandon Smith at 6 has had two good scoring games. Continue to hold. Maybe even bring him in. He's had some lucky tries that have inflated his score, but he could be a cash down option for someone you're looking to get rid of. Um, Forward pack, Spencer Leniu comes into the team at 8, which we thought might impact White's minutes, but White is still in the team. Do you think White might lose a few minutes, or is Spencer Leniu coming into 8 a good thing for him?
Yeah, well, me being a White owner, I do think that he probably keeps those 50-ish minutes there. As you look at that team, Lindsay Collins has been listed to come off the bench there, which will probably affect. I don't really see it affecting White's minutes, to be honest, because Leonard's not a massive minute player. Like he'll play anywhere from 35 to 40 minutes there, which I think Collins maybe first week back might get eased back in there. Docker Clay does play hooker, but then Watson will play at lock. So yeah, I would say anywhere from 50 minutes for Nafu White, 45 to 50, as Steep and Fogarty aren't massive minute players. And yeah, how many minutes do you reckon he'll get?
Lenu, as you said, isn't the biggest minute player. He's exerts a lot of energy at the start. So I reckon Lindsay Collins will come on for Lenu after about 25-ish minutes. And then once Lenu's had his stint till halftime, I reckon Lenu will come on for White. And then I reckon White will probably, like you said, get 40 to 45 minutes, which with his PPM, he'll probably still get 40-ish points, which is okay. You'll live with that. But just play it by ear and see how it goes. Connor Watson holds the 9. If you don't own him, I think it's a bit too late to get him. He's at 780-ish K, and especially with the likes of Haas being in the trades this week, if you don't own Watson, I probably wouldn't be looking to get him in. Crichton, I wouldn't be looking to get him in either. If you own him, continue to hold. Sua Wong, back to 12. He's continuing to get this starting spot, and I'm growing interest on him. Do you have any interest in Wong at all with the Roosters bench?
Yeah, well, I had him in my team over the preseason, and yeah, that bench being there, no real players at all that play on the edge there. So I am extremely interested in him there. I think he could do extremely well there. Only thing is they could move maybe Watson to 13 and Radley to edge for Sua Wong. But other than that, I do not think he'll get stinted for any minutes.
An interesting one. I'd like to watch him for another week with Radley back, just to see how the rotation plays out. But if he does get the minutes I'm looking for and the points I'm looking for, he could honestly be an option for me next week. Moving on to the next game, Cowboys versus Broncos at Suncorp. Going to be an interesting one for the Cows. I think the Broncos are unchanged with oh no, Piakura on the bench after his suspension, I think, or just dropping.
No, he
But
played on the weekend.
oh yeah, mind blank there. Number one, Reece Walsh, -1 last week, which is one of the worst scores I've ever seen from an 80-minute player. What to do with Reece Walsh is the question. He does have a great run of fixtures coming up, but the break even's going to be absolutely skyrocketing. Would you hold or sell Walsh if you had him?
Yeah, I'm in the context where you hold him. He's already lost too much money, and I think it is an outlier game for Walsh. I don't overly rate Reece as a player, but I think that he'll definitely bounce back. And yeah, with his easy draw coming, and he's a player that can crank out 80s any given week. So for me, Walsh is probably one of the players that I would definitely be looking to hold this week.
I feel like you just got to cop the money loss on the chin, or maybe get rid of him and uh buy him back later when he's much cheaper. Maybe through Origin period, because I actually don't see Walsh playing Origin. I think Ponga will start over him. Number two, Cobo, Mariner, Shibasaki, and Arthur's 2 to 5. Cobo, avoid. Mariner is an interesting one. He's been scoring really well for the Broncos. Do you have any interest in Mariner, or do you think he's still an avoid, as centers don't typically score as well as he is?
Yeah, for me, I do think Mariners and avoid. We kind of saw the Broncos have their, I would say, red flag game almost where they didn't play very well. And I don't know how Mariner scored, but I wouldn't have assumed it was very good considering that Shimasaki didn't score very well there. But yeah, I mean, it'll be an up and down nature for Mariner, but I just don't think there's enough interest in him. And there's probably enough centers going around that you don't really need to look at Mariner at quite of a pricey
Yeah.
price, like 400 odd K.
He actually scored 62 last week, and he's averaging 51 over the
Yeah,
first two
wow.
games. He is a center wing fullback. He's at 517K though, which you're getting out of cheapy range there. You're more moving on to more of a mid. And for a price like that, I'd probably go a Howarth over Mariner. Shibasaki after a dreadful game against the Raiders. If you do own him, I'd continue to hold. I'd just slot him in the emergencies and see what happens to him. Hopefully he can find that 40 to 50 score like he did in week one. Jesse Arthurs, one who we've had a few questions about after his good first 2 weeks. I personally don't have any interest in Jesse Arthurs, especially with the cheapies this week. Do you have any interest in Jesse?
No, I don't have any. I think it's definitely been inflated by a couple good scores there, and yeah, I just don't really think he's going to score that many tries at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he'll score tries. I just don't think he can keep up that 50-ish scoring what he's been doing, so I'm gonna stay away from him. Ben Hunt and Adam Reynolds, once again, not going near them. Carrigan had a shocking week last week with a 30-ish points or 40 points. If you have him, I'd honestly look to sell and maybe upgrade to his not former, to his other prop Payne Haas if you can. Corey Pates, he's getting decent minutes, just the scoring's not being quite there for him. He's averaging mid 30-ish, high 30s. Continue to hold. Jack Gachevsky, one who was terrible last week. What to do with Jack? I personally don't own him, and I don't think you did do either, because we thought he was an avoid, and he's showing exactly why he's an avoid. What would you do with Jack if you owned him?
Yeah, well, he was never an option in my eyes, and now that Jack's gone low, and there is talks about Pierre Cura coming really close to his spot there. I do think that maybe you can loop him and give him one more week to prove it himself. But other than that, I've got no interest um in Goeschke at all, and I'm definitely not buying him. Lucky to get another week on my emergencies.
Yeah. If you do own him, give him another go. If he's rubbish, get rid of him next week. Similar to Hetherington, give him another go. If he's rubbish, get rid of him. The bench lineup, Walters, Jensen, Willison, and Piakura. I'd have interest in Piakura if he did get a starting role, but now I think they'll split the minutes 40-40 or 50-30, so I'd stay away. On the Cowboys side of things, Scott Drinkwater holds the spot. If you own him, continue to hold. I wouldn't be looking to buy. Robert Darby comes into the team replacing who is it? Um, Mc- hmm, I'm actually not sure. I don't think Robert Darby was in the team last week. But anyway, Jackson Purdue and Vilea make up the centers. Jackson Purdue, two rubbish scores, and he scored two tries. I'm not sure what to do with him. I'm giving him one more week. He's still 245k, so he's only lost 5k. But I'll give him one more week to see what happens. And Jake Clifford slots into the team for Tom Duffy, which is a bit of a shame for fantasy owners. Tom Duffy now becomes a clear sell as he won't be getting a spot back as Clifford's. As we saw in the back end of last year, Clifford does facilitate the team, so he'll stay in. If you can sell Duffy this week, that's great. Otherwise, use him as a looping option and then just sell him next week. Um, Jason Taumalolo, one who we were very excited to get back. Um, locks in that starting prop role. Hopefully the minutes are there for him. With McIntyre and Neem on the bench, I'm not sure he'll get those minutes, but we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully he can get 40-ish minutes, and that's all he needs to get 45 to 50 points. But we'll see how he goes there. Bateman, O'Donnell, and Cotter remain unchanged. O'Donnell could be a decent option, but at the moment I'd see it clear from any Cowboys players. We'll move on. Do you want to talk us through the Shark side of things against the Rabbitohs here, Will?
Yeah, so you see pretty much I think it's an unchanged team for them here this week with
Hmm.
not much in the back line worth talking about there. I do think that Nico Hines is one that you look to avoid. I have heard a couple of people have a bit of value in him, but his kick is splitting the kicking. He's not kicking for goal anymore, and yeah, for me, Nico's one that you kind of avoid in their forward pack. I think there's a couple of interesting options here. Adam Fanua-Blake's one that I'd really look to avoid, or maybe even sell to a Payne Haas if you don't already own him. But yeah, one that I'm very interested in if you need a hooker is Blake Brayley, who has started the season off absolutely killing it, averaging about 55, and just a base stat merchant, just makes so many tackles there, and does not um, miss any tackles at all there. I think he's going to have a really, really good year this year and will really help with a very, very good middle from forwards for the um Sharks here. Teague Wilton's one that I've heard people have a little bit of interest in, which I think his score was a little bit inflated considering the fact that he scored a try there, and I don't think he's scoring a try every single week there. Getting that 57, I do think Teague is a little bit of a mid-range option, but not one that I have much in when you can get a Matty Nicholson or a Ola Kawatu for around the same price, or even save a bit of Matty. Cameron McInnes is
Yeah,
one that I am really like I was big on, and I still am big on. Like he got good minutes on the weekend. To get to Payne Haas, do you think that McInnes is one that you can risk, or do you think that 65-minute game from him, can put up as good a scores as Payne Haas as we've seen before?
I don't think he'll put up as good a score as Payne Haas will. But as a person who owns Barnett and McInnes, I'd personally trade Barnett instead of McInnes. McInnes was getting 64 minutes or 60-ish minutes. It's just the point scoring wasn't there for him. He normally has a PPM of 1 to 1.05, which means he'll average 60 to 65 points if he can get 60 minutes. So that's why I'm going to continue to hold until he doesn't get the minutes because I know the scoring will be there eventually for him.
So
Moving on to the Rabbits.
if you were
What's
in
that?
my boat trying to get in Haas, do you think Haas is a must-have, or you can kind of risk Haas, hoping that his PPM falls down, and then keeping McInnes in there?
I personally wouldn't rip up. I wouldn't trade keepers to get Hearth in. I've only been able to since I've gone Hosking to Nicholson, and then I left so much cash in the bank that I can trade a struggling Barnett up to Hearth. So that's why I've done it. But I wouldn't get rid of McInnes personally. Moving on to the Rabbit side of things, not much to talk about in the back line except Jamie Humphries. Another great game, 70-ish points. He's going to keep doing this every week. He's averaging about 700 kicking meters, which is giving him about 20 to 25 points. And look, he's goal kicking as well, getting try assists, line break assists, like all everything you could want. I think this is the last week to get Humphreys if you want him in, because his break even's still really low, and you've missed out on a lot of cash generation, but you can still hop on him and get the money in the bank. So I think this is the last week to get him. Moving on to the forwards, Sean Kepi, Mamazulis, and Mawale remain unchanged. And Peter Mamazulis with his 60 last week still honestly could be a buy if you don't own him. But if you do own him, he should be good enough to make it onto your interchange this week. David Mawale, one who got increased minutes last week, but the scoring output still isn't there. So I'd look to trade or avoid. Colin Matangi, one who had a rubbish week last week, avoid, along with Jai Arrow and Tallis Duncan. Tallis Duncan niggling, harboring a bit of an injury, so I'd look to avoid as well. Bench, nothing to really write home about there. Moving on, Dolphins versus Tigers. Dolphins, not much to really talk about in that back line. Isaiah Katoa having a good first 2 weeks. Um, look, I wouldn't look to pick him up, especially with Humphreys in the mix, so we'll move on. Saifidi, forward pack, Gilbert, the only one I really consider an option here, maybe even a Marshall King. But Gilbert, he got 50 minutes with only 40-ish points. It's probably not good enough, but hopefully he can get 50, 55 minutes and continue that PPM of one and average 50-ish. So continue to hold. West Tigers. Do you want to talk us through the Tigers here, Will, as you are the Tigers man?
Yeah, so Stafford Toa holds a spot there, which I do think is one that could be very interesting. Played quite well on the weekend, getting a 56 there with a lower break even now. If you're looking for maybe a Tom Duffy to a Stafford Toa, that could be a really good trade into your centers there. Or it could be the week to trade Purdue to Stafford Toa if you don't have any more fires to put out there. Um, do you think Jerome Luai is one to hold with him going low back to back kind of low scores there and not doing what everyone thought he could do?
I did have a feeling this would happen. I didn't go near Lillard just because I wanted to see how he'd play in his new team, and what I've seen hasn't been good enough. But if you do own him, I'd hold. He will have a good week eventually, scoring 50-ish. But for me, if he has another bad week or another two bad weeks, I'd look to sell. Moving into the forward pack, Terrell May, one who everyone should own by now, will continue to get 70 points. I'm sure of it. Api Coruscant didn't get minutes last week. If you own him, I'd probably give him another week and then look to sell. Safar still holds the spot, should get 80 minutes and is a clear hold. And Alex Twal, I saw someone getting rid of Twal. I don't know why. Hold Twal. Wouldn't look to buy, but just hold. Royce Hunt, sell. Jack Bird, sell. Still on the bench. Not, wouldn't go near him. Titans versus Knights at Seabus Super. Titans home. In the back line there, not much to really talk about. Keeney had a rubbish week, so did Brimson. And Campbell didn't have a great week either. But if you own either Keeney, Brimson, or Campbell, I'd hold them for sure. Give them a few more weeks. Wouldn't look to buy them. Moving on to the forwards, Bo Fermor and Tino, the two I'm interested in here. Do you have any interest in Bo Fermor and Tino, and why would you pick them up?
Yeah, I don't have any much interest in Tino at all. I think his score was inflated by that try, and he's not going to be scoring a try every single day or game there. And he did miss a couple of tackles. I think there was five of them, which I don't love. But so yeah, I'd avoid him. But on the Bo Fermor side of the ball, I have a lot of interest in him. Played really well, got looked to offload the ball well, and is just quite a good defender there. So for me, I think Bo Fermor is one that I'm really looking as he looks to have locked down that 80-minute spot also, which I think is just all positives for him.
Yeah, I do agree. He has the edge center duel. He's basically the same player as Dylan Lucas, really. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Dylan Lucas if you don't own any of them. Moving on to a night, been my favorite team to watch so far this year. Kalen Ponga holds a spot, of course. He's honestly rooting for one of the better captain options this week. If you don't have halves, it's either between Ponga or May in my eyes, with Cleary up against the Storm. Bradman Best 4, Marzu 5. Two blokes that have had two good weeks. Marzu still about 7% owned, which is crazy to me. I think he's one of the better buys this week. If you can downgrade maybe an Edwards or a Turbo to Marzu, maybe not Turbo, but if you have Edwards and you want to cash down, you got to get Marzu. Fletcher Sharp, one who might be interesting. I'm going to give him another week to see if he has the scoring, which he has had in the first two. Moving on to the forwards, some Feedy Crosland. Brody Jones gets a starting spot at prop. I personally don't think uh, the minutes will be there for Brody Jones with Matt Croker and Hetherington on the bench, potentially limiting them. But watch and see how he goes. Dylan Lucas and Tyson Frizzell. Tyson Frizzell moved from 13 to 12, and with Kai Pierce Paul's suspension, Dylan Lucas would avoid Frizzell. Dylan Lucas, if you own him, you're laughing. Um, Adam Elliott gets a 13 role. Talk us through Elliott because he did have score 55 points from 50 minutes last week.
Yeah, well, personally, I believe that both of these are Knights players, or all of them are kind of watches this week, considering they have a bye next week, which, yeah, I wouldn't really go near any of them. But Adam Elliott, if he can put up a good performance and hold that 13 spot, I think he's going to do really well. And we know what he can do when he's been playing 13. So, yeah, if he holds that spot, I've got a world of interest in him.
Yeah, like you said, with the bye next week, this is a completely free look at everyone on the Knights team if you're interested in any of them. Like, they're not going to hurt you. And if they do score well, they're not going to make money in the next week because they got to buy. So you got a completely free look in here. Moving on, Eels versus Bulldogs at Combank Stadium. Eels look favourites to be the Spooners this year and wouldn't look at to bring any of them in. Isaiah Iongi, he's got one more chance in my team, and if he scores another mid-20s, he's gone. Next week, he's going to be gone. Looking through there, Dean Hawkins gets a 7 spot, and what's his face? Oh God,
Ronaldo
what's his name?
Volkman.
Oh yeah, Volkman. And Volkman gets the axe after his two poor performances. Dean Hawkins, I think, will hold the spot until Moses comes back. Could be an interesting option, but the way the Eels are playing, I'm going to go nowhere near him. Forwards are the same. Hopgood being the only option in this team I'd even look at. He's had for his scoring, not the greatest first 2 weeks, but I continue to hold, obviously.
I
Moving on to the
actually
doggies.
On the
What's
Eels
that?
side of the ball, there's two players that I'm really interested in. Is looking at Jordan Samarani for another week. He just scored a 40 against the Tigers, and it was kind of a flogging there. If he can put up another good score, I would be interested in Jordan at a cheaper price. And for me, Jack Williams is one that on the second row scored quite well and put up a 50 last week with quite good uh, output there for Jack Williams. And no real massive minute edge players off that bench. I do think that Jack Williams could be a very, very interesting pod to go this week.
Yeah, I personally am not going anywhere near any Eels players, but Jack Williams does run the ball hard, and he's getting up to probably not even a cheap. He's a bit more of a mid-tier edge this year at the moment, and there's so many more mid-tier edges I'd go, so I'd stay away from him. Connor Tracy, Wilson, Jerry, the whole back line, no interest in them whatsoever. Move on. Max King, a great pod, another 50-point game for him. I'm a big fan of Max King. Josh Curran gets a starting role along with Satili Tupanua, who scored 2 tries about 2 weeks ago. And we said if he got a starting role, it'd be an interesting option. But the whole forward pack, except Jacob Preston and Max King, I'd look at for this week. Interchange, not really much to talk about there. Last game of a round, we got Sea Eagles versus Raiders at Four Pines Park. Tommy Turbo with his little injury niggle continue holds the spot. Um, hasn't had a great 2 weeks with Sea Eagles have been playing well, but they got demolished last week by the Wires, which is concerning. Jason Saab and Cooler avoids. Garrick, if you continue to hold if you own him, wouldn't be looking to bring him in. Hopewade and Luke Brooks avoid. DCE, after his back spasm going off early last week, continues to hold the spot. Um, hold if you own him. Not many people do own him, wouldn't be looking to bring him in. Another pod we had, Taniela Paseka. Look, he pumped out, I think, 50-ish points last week. I reckon he'll continue to do that. He's getting the minutes. And yeah, good pod if you need like a cash down option that no one else really has. Takiaho comes back from injury. I'd watch or avoid Takiaho. Hamole, after his rubbish performance last week, continue to hold. Wouldn't be looking to bring him in. Just hold him. His break even will skyrocket, and you can pick him up at a cheaper price later in the year. Do you want to talk us through the Raiders here, Will? There's some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah. So the Raiders. My first question to you is: do you still think Tamale is a buy?
Look, he's got the spot again, and not really any sign of Albert Hopewade down here in the 19 spot. I think Tamale is still a buy. His break even's still low, and had a pretty bad game last week and still managed 45-ish points. So I reckon he is still a good buy.
Yeah, so he's one that I'm quite interested in still, and not much else to be said in the back line there, but in their forward pack, I do think they have a couple options here. Corey Horsburgh, I still think he's a buy. He killed it last weekend. It's just looking really good there with a same bench that I think is really good for his minutes. And with the Zach Hosking injury, someone that I was really big on, Matty Nicholson, all over the preseason, put up a double try performance and put up to 82 points there. Do you have much interest in Matty Nicholson at all, or are you watching another week?
I've personally gone Hosking to Nicholson just to free up some cash. My only concern, I feel like he's a little bit trappy. He did get the crazy attacking game last week that inflated his score. He should hopefully lock down a 70 to 80-minute role, which would be great for him. And if he can do that, I can see him averaging 50-ish, which is more than enough for me to pick him up. So it is a risk, but it's a risk I'm most likely going to take rather than giving him 1 week. And Morgan Smith did him a 13, which is great for Nicholson because Nicholson has locked down that spot for until Hosking is back. So it's a fun risk, and that's why I'm going to take it. And looking at the bench, same bench, Paddy, Sasagi, Moody, and Mariota. Hopefully they don't limit Nicholson's minutes. We'll see how we go. But not really. That's the last game, and not really anything else to be said there. So any final comments, Will, before we call it a day?
I know I don't have many to say. Just yeah, join the private group. A lot of good stuff going in there, and I think that you'll really will benefit from joining that group, and your rank will skyrocket there. We put a lot of effort in, and if you haven't already, follow the Instagram as we're doing for the next 24 hours a team and trade review there. And yeah, so pretty much that's about it. What about you, Charlie? Do you have any last comments?
No, I don't. I just back up what you said. Join a private group. We put um, a lot of effort into it, and we've already seen good results in the first 2 weeks from our members. DM us on Instagram if you're interested. And as always, thanks for all the support on YouTube and Instagram. We're loving it. So that's all we got for you tonight, fellas, and we'll see you in the next one. Buy, hold, sell tomorrow.
Cheers, legends.
See you, fellas.